My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes Allah allows us to love someone even though they were never meant to stay in our life. And it leaves us heartbroken, confused, wondering, why would Allah let me love them if they were only going to walk away? But you see, not every love is meant to stay forever. Some are meant to teach you, some are meant to return you to Allah, because love itself was part of your test. Sometimes Allah places a person in your life not to stay, but to test the state of your heart. Not to complete your story, but to show you what your heart is made of. And you don't always see it at first, because when love begins, it feels like a gift, a relief, a dua finally answered. And you tell yourself, this must be it, this is the one. But the truth is, not every gift is meant to stay. Some gifts are sent for a moment, not for forever. And when they leave, it hurts deeply. Because it's not just their presence you miss, it's the meaning they brought into your life. You remember the late night talks, the excitement of hoping, the way you carried their name in every sujood, like a secret only Allah knew. You did it the right way. You prayed, you waited, you asked for guidance, you asked Allah to protect the love, and still it ended. And now you're sitting there with your hands trembling, wondering, Ya Allah, why? Why let me feel so deeply if you knew they were always going to leave? But that question is the doorway to the real lesson. You see, Allah sometimes places love in your path, not as a destination, but as a direction. Not to give you a person, but to bring your soul back to Him. Because nothing tests the heart like giving it to someone only to watch them walk away with it. And in that moment, when you feel like you've lost everything, Allah is watching, not in anger, not in disappointment, but in gentle silence, waiting to see if you'll still return to Him the way you used to before they arrived. That is the real test. Sometimes it takes a heartbreak to reveal how attached you became to a human being more than the one who created them. And it's not your fault. You're human. You loved with sincerity. You meant well. And Allah does not blame you for having a soft heart. But when that love becomes louder than your remembrance, when you begin to check your phone more than you check your soul, when you begin to build your future around a person instead of prayer, that's when Allah steps in. Not to punish you, but to save you. You think He's taking something away, but really, He's giving you a chance to come back. Because the truth is, love is a beautiful feeling, but it's also a powerful mirror. It shows you where your heart stands. And sometimes it shows you how far your heart drifted. Allah lets that love enter your life, not to ruin you, but to reveal you, to test. Will you still remember Him when the one you thought you couldn't live without is no longer beside you? Will you still cry to Him, not for the person to return, but for your connection with Him to be restored? And if you do, if you turn your heartbreak into a doorway to Allah, then that love, that loss, that pain, it becomes the very reason your soul wakes up. It becomes the thing that breaks you, only to rebuild you softer, wiser, closer to Allah than you've ever been. So don't think the love was a mistake. Don't think the time you spent was wasted. Don't curse your heart for being sincere, because Allah sees the love you gave. And when it's sincere, He always uses it to bring you closer, even if that means He has to take the person away. And I know that hurts. I know it doesn't feel fair. I know it feels like the one thing that gave you hope is now the thing that shattered you. But that's only because you're looking at it from this side of the story. What you can't see is what Allah protected you from. What you don't know is what He's preparing you for. The love was never wasted. It was written, it was witnessed, and it was part of the journey that brought you here right now, in this moment of pain, where your heart is cracked wide open and finally ready to return. Because when the love disappears and you find yourself crying on a prayer mat again, not for a person but for peace, that's when you realize you didn't lose. You were redirected. You were chosen for something higher. And the one who allowed your heart to feel is the same, one who will heal it. So breathe, let it go slowly, and whisper to your Lord the one thing that matters most. Ya Allah, don't let this pain go to waste. Use it to bring me back to you, because your soul needed to awaken. You thought it was a blessing. You told yourself, it finally feels right. You smiled differently. You slept peacefully. You thanked Allah from the depths of your heart, because finally, after all the patience, the silence, the du'as, someone showed up and they made you feel seen. You thought, this must be the one. This must be what I was waiting for. And because you were sincere, you didn't fall into haram. You didn't want temporary excitement. You wanted something pure, something sacred. You asked Allah to bless it. You made istikara. You cried in sujood. You said, Ya Allah, if it's good for me, bring it closer. And if it's not, take it away. But what hurt was that it came closer and then it left. It felt like a door opened just long enough for you to walk in and then slammed shut before you could understand why. And now you're sitting there, confused, exhausted, quietly saying, I thought this was the blessing. I thought you gave me a sign. But sometimes what looks like a blessing is really a distraction wearing a disguise. Not every arrival is a gift. Not every comfort is safe. Not every connection is clean. You see, when Allah loves you, He doesn't just give you what looks good. He protects you from what blocks what's truly good. And sometimes the thing you were holding on to, the thing that felt like peace, was actually pulling you away from Him, little by little, not in a loud, obvious way, but in subtle ways your heart didn't notice. Maybe your prayers got rushed. Maybe your focus shifted. Maybe your heart started depending on someone else's replies more than Allah's mercy. And that's when Allah stepped in, not to punish you, but to protect you. Because the worst kind of heartbreak is the one that feels like a blessing on the outside, but slowly drains your soul from the inside. You were about to anchor your heart to something temporary, something uncertain, something that could never carry your future. And Allah in His mercy saw what you couldn't see. He saw the cracks forming behind their smile. He saw the tests coming down the road. He saw the way they would change, or how you might change while chasing them. And so even though it hurt, He took it away. He broke the illusion not to break you, but to wake you. Because some blessings arrive only to distract you from the one thing that matters. Your relationship with the one who never leaves. You were so close to handing your peace over to a person, so close to placing your worth in someone else's eyes, so close to wrapping your identity around us instead of grounding it in Him. And when Allah saw your heart slipping, He gently or sometimes painfully reminded you, not this one, not now, not this way. And yes, it feels cruel in the moment, because love makes you hopeful. It makes you dream. It makes you imagine a life where things finally feel whole. But if it was truly a blessing, it would have brought you closer to Allah, not further. It would have made your deen stronger, not weaker. It would have brought you clarity, not confusion. Peace, not emotional chaos. Gratitude, not addiction to attention. So when Allah removes something you thought was your blessing, He's not saying you can't be loved. He's saying, not like this, not by them, not in a way that risks your soul. He's saying, you are too valuable to settle for what distracts you from me. And the most painful part, you didn't see it until it was gone. Only after the door closed did you begin to notice how much your heart was drifting, how dependent you became, how distracted your soul had grown. And now you're waking up. You're remembering that blessings from Allah don't make you forget Him. They don't shake your identity. They don't make your emotions feel like a storm every day. A real blessing brings sakoon. A real blessing doesn't just feel good, it does good. It brings you back to yourself, back to your values, back to your Lord. So maybe this thing you lost wasn't the blessing after all. Maybe the real blessing was Allah saving you from the heartbreak that would have happened later had He not ended it now. And maybe this pain you're carrying now, this ache, this silence, this confusion isn't a punishment. It's protection, it's purification, it's preparation. Because Allah never takes something from you except to give you something purer in return. And that return might not be a person. It might be peace. It might be clarity. It might be a version of you that you never would have found if He hadn't removed what was distracting you. So yes, it felt like a blessing, but Allah knew it wasn't. And when He removes a false blessing, He's not taking your joy. He's clearing the path for something real, something written, something rooted, something that will feel like home, not just to your heart, but to your soul. So trust Him, trust what He took, and trust what He's still preparing. Because what you thought was a blessing was really just a detour. And now, Allah is finally calling you back home because you fell in love with the future, not the reality. You didn't just love them, you loved what you saw with them. The late night conversations, the plans you started forming quietly in your heart, the vision of walking through life side by side, building something beautiful, something lasting. It wasn't just them you were attached to. It was the story you began writing in your imagination. A story where they stayed. A story where it all worked out. And now that they're gone, it's not just the person you're grieving. It's the future that never happened. That's what makes it harder. Because it's not just their absence that aches. It's the emptiness of all the what could have been. You miss the version of life you thought was finally arriving. The conversations about marriage, the peaceful walks, the way your name sounded next to theirs in dua. You had pictured the Ramadan together, the dreams, the healing, the becoming. But Allah saw what you didn't. He saw that this future you built in your heart was made of imagination, not reality. And when you fall in love with a version of someone that only exists in your mind, you risk missing the signs Allah is showing you in real life. You overlook the red flags. You silence your instincts. You force it to feel right because it looks right in your dream. But your dream is not qadr. And Allah in His mercy won't let your heart stay chained to a future that isn't written for you. Because if it was written, it wouldn't have left. You see, sometimes the person isn't wrong. They just don't fit the version of life Allah has prepared for your soul. And no matter how much you love your plan, You must learn to love His decree more. You thought you loved them, but maybe you loved who they could have been, not who they actually were. You saw potential, growth, change, and you kept thinking just a little more patience, just a little more time. But time doesn't turn a maybe into a written, and effort doesn't rewrite qadr. Allah knew that if He let it continue, you would have built your life on the hope of who they might become and not the truth of who they were. And one day, that would have broken you more. So He ended it now. Before the papers, before the marriage, before the deeper attachment, He broke what you were building, not to destroy your hope, but to correct the direction of your heart. You fell in love with a dream, but Allah's mercy removes anything that blocks you from the reality He has written. And yes, you may still cry over it. You may still wake up wondering, what if it had worked? But the truth is, if it could have worked, it would have. If they were meant to walk beside you in this life, you wouldn't be reading this now with a heart heavy and hands empty. So stop blaming your sincerity. Stop punishing yourself for dreaming. You had a beautiful heart. You wanted something good, and Allah saw that. But sometimes He breaks the fantasy so you don't waste years chasing a shadow. He removes the wrong future. So your hands are free when the right one finally arrives, because the future you imagined with them was never yours. It was an illusion, a soft comfort that hid the reality Allah was trying to wake you from. And when you love something that doesn't exist, you begin to lose yourself. You settle, you compromise, you shrink parts of yourself just to keep a hope alive that was already dying. Allah ended it, not because you were wrong to love, but because you were loving a direction He never planned to take you in. You didn't fail. You just arrived at a dead-end road, and Allah turned you around. And one day, maybe not now, but one day, you look back and whisper, Ya Allah, thank you for not letting that dream come true. Because what He's preparing won't just look like a blessing. It will be one in reality, not just imagination. So breathe. Let go of the version of life that only existed in your heart. And trust that Allah doesn't let anything go unless it was blocking what was truly meant for you. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a fantasy. And in return, you're being returned to reality, to truth, to something that won't require you to dream it into existence, because it will exist on its own, written, real, and entirely yours, because you were loving with an unprotected heart. You loved with your whole heart, and you didn't hide it. You didn't play games. You didn't measure every word, every gesture. You gave them space in your life and in your prayers without hesitation, because that's who you are. You weren't pretending. You weren't performing. You were sincere. And that sincerity was your strength, but it was also your vulnerability. Because when you love with an unguarded heart, when you love without a shield, every disappointment feels like a dagger. And now, here you are, trying to understand how someone could walk away from love that was so real, so honest, so pure. But you need to understand this. Sincerity isn't always protection. And a clean heart doesn't guarantee that others will treat it with care. Sometimes we give parts of our heart that only Allah was meant to carry, not because we're reckless, but because we're soft, because we believe in people, because we want something real and assume they do too. And somewhere along the way, you placed them too close to your center. You made them the reason you smiled in the morning. You let your mood rise and fall based on how they responded. You built your calm around their presence, and slowly you forgot that real calm only comes from Allah. This isn't to blame you, it's to remind you your heart